Let's go over now. She's the creator of the DAY program, which does preventative work with young people on abuse and exploitation. Natalie Collins. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Hello.
My understanding is that, that your feeling is that the resources that are going to go into these misogyny lessons, and indeed what looks like a sort of general program to try to steer boys away from disrespecting women, you feel that that money could be better spent elsewhere in terms of helping women? Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, I think it is really important that we're seeing this progress in recognising prevention, in working with children and young people. We wrote the DAY programme, I wrote it back in 2010. We've been equipping practitioners across the UK to do that work with young people, both boys and girls, across that time. I do think there is a mistake in focusing solely on boys and young men in a way that's neglecting girls and young women, that these boys are perpetrating this abuse to girls, to young women, to female teachers. We've had a school that has had strikes of teachers because of the misogyny some of those children are perpetrating in that school. So the idea that all this money is going into preventative lessons with boys does beg the question of what are you going to do to support the girls and young women who are being subject to this stuff online and in person. And while there is a support package in this VAWG strategy, I do feel troubled that we're hearing about boys and men in a way that is, for once, placing responsibility on the perpetrators. But I worry about what happens if you don't have a baseline of support for those girls and women who are being subjected to harm. And there's an absolute decimation of those sorts of services. There's very little in place for children and young people who are being subjected to harm.
Okay.
And so, while this,
so what would we do? What would we do? What would you propose we do for the girls with this money that's being all spent on the boys at the moment? How do we help the girls and the females, indeed female teachers as well, as you wisely point out? How do we go about that?
Well, I think there is a question about whether we should be educating boys in isolation. Like, are these misogyny classes going to be boy only? Are there girls going to be in those classes? How are we going to navigate that? So the practicalities of what does it look like to only educate half of your population in any education system feels like a practical, like, what are the girls going to be doing while the boys are doing that? And is the money only going to go to those education classes that are for the boys? And what we're going to spend the money on, what we're going to do for the girls? So I think we do need to have cultural literacy. Like your previous guest was saying, this is about pornography, it's about the music industry, it's about films, it's about lots of stuff. And like you say, I think that focus on incel culture or Andrew Tate, I'm just not convinced that most young people in the work that we do, we hear from practitioners and young people themselves, who just kind of is a bit eye-rolly. By the time adults know about it, most young people are past it in some way. So, and I think we also just need to challenge this idea that there's been an explosion in misogyny, like it's just emerged all of a sudden, like there hasn't been this issue.
Well, we didn't have it yesterday, but man, it's a problem today.
yeah. In some ways, this is just an extension of the problem we've always had, but it's been put on steroids because of digital culture. And so I think the question is, how do we do this? And the other thing that's missing from this VAWG strategy is, what does it look for parents to be part of this? What does this look like? Because parents are the first educators of their children, and I'm not seeing anything in there about how we're equipping parents to work in a way with their children, to equip their children. And actually, if we don't have parents on board, it doesn't matter how much you want to do misogyny work in schools. Actually, if those parents are like, no, my little Jimmy's lovely, and I don't think that they should be talked about this stuff because he's only too young, until parents are on board with that conversation, it's going to be very hard to get any traction with those young people or those children or with those schools.
Well, that's a really good point. So these misogyny lessons that they're proposing, it sounds like I'm saying that kids are going to be taught how to be misogynists. These lessons on misogyny, not in misogyny. Now that you come to mention it, I mean, wouldn't it be a good idea for boys and girls to be in those lessons?
Well, yeah, I think there's something about the normalizing for girls and boys of what it is to be a boy or to be a girl, what it is to be hypersexualized. This isn't just about boys watching porn and thinking it's okay to be sexually violent. It's girls watching porn and thinking that's what sex should be like for me. So not objecting when it's painful, not objecting when it's humiliating. And so there is something about, this is about putting the responsibility on those causing the harm, but it's got to be done in a way that says, as a culture and for all young people and for all adults, we're going to choose to create new cultural norms. And that's not just about what you learn in the classroom. Of course, classrooms are important, but this is about what they see on TV. This is about what's on their phones. And we are seeing some movement around things like these nudification apps. The VAWG strategy is saying they're going to be banned. So there are some steps around technology. But I think this idea and this focus solely on schools are on their knees in lots of ways. And so this idea that we can just shove a new curriculum onto it, schools who are really, teachers who are really struggling to manage challenging behaviour. We've got massive amounts of absenteeism in schools after COVID with children at school refusal. You know, there's all these problems. And this idea that you can just kind of parachute in some resources without understanding the wider climate is challenging.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a last question. You know, of course, misogyny is a problem. We've got to do something about it. But what concerns me slightly is this is becoming a kind of coverall kind of culture that we now have. This sort of fashionable assumption that all men are bad, you know, that all the problems are down to men. As I was saying earlier, if you watch TV now, we don't have whodunits anymore, we have he-done-its. Every time you watch a TV drama, you know the bad guy, well, the bad person, the villain is going to be a guy. It's going to be a guy, usually a white guy, a middle-class white guy. But we've got to get this into proportion. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely accept we have a misogyny problem. But I think we have to be careful about not running away or not inculcating children in particular with the idea that all men are bad.
Yeah, I think this is a really big and important topic to look at. How do we talk about this in a way that is meaningful? The reality is the vast majority of women who are killed will be killed by men and men known to them. So this isn't about some kind of cultural conversation that isn't about the material reality of what men and women are living with. And let's be honest, men who are abusive are not living their best lives or happy lives either. So this is about making men's and women's lives better. And I think there is something about us asking questions about how we can pitch this and talk about this, about human flourishing, rather than demonizing anyone, because we're definitely not going to have boys on board if we're just saying you're all bad, boys, all men are bad.
Exactly right, Natalie.
That's got to be how we do this is really important. That's something we've been working on for a very long time to do well.
Natalie, a really good point. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much. Natalie Collins there, creator of the Day programme. That's an organisation that does preventative work with young people on abuse and exploitation. Let's go straight to the phone, shall we? On the same